back down to, well, thank you very much for telling me that. It's never told me that before. Okay, so basically remember our 6 basic tools: bowl gouge, spindle roughing gouge, spindle detail gouge, scraper, skew, and a parting tool. So we're working on bowls this week. So our grains will be running perpendicular to the bed, so this one goes away. You don't use a spindle roughing gouge on cross grain bowls. So these are the tools we might use today. We'll definitely use the bowl gouge a lot, maybe the scraper a little bit, and maybe these will come in handy for something. We'll see. So. The bowl turning. We're going to start off with a nice round blank. I think this is ancient mahogany, which has been around for a few years. Now we're really using blank. We're going to be using a chuck. So I just have this is actually record power chuck with its standard 50 millimeter jaws. So that's 2 inches. And we're going to start on the screw, the worm screw. You can start between centers if you want. If you start between centers, then it gives you the option to center your grain a little bit, because you can tilt it a little bit. And actually, but this one actually is pretty straight as it is. So we're just gonna go with a worm screw because it's easy. So I have a hole in here, which is about, I think it's a little bigger than 5/16, but it's around that neighborhood, which is what the record worm screw takes. So we're going to put that in first. Make sure it's pulled out all the way. You don't want it slipping out when you get a bowl on it. We're going to screw this on and basically just twist it on. A lot of people like turn the lathe on and just slap it up here and hope for the best. I don't do that. I like my hands. And I'm gonna bring up the tailstock just to start things off at least.
Tom, before you get started,
Yep.
maybe you should mention that you're tightening that right up tight against the face of the jaws.
That's true. So this flag is, I don't know if I can show that a little bit. So you can see the face of the jaws is right up against the face of that wood. If I was going to be doing here's my other choice for today. A log that's a little bit rougher. What I would do for this is I would take maybe a 2.5 inch Forstner bit. I would drill a hole there to actually see, so the jaws would seat on something solid. And the other thing is I'll probably be using a tenon today.
Tom, I didn't understand with the Forstner bit and seating it.
Oh, well, if you look here, the jaws are right against the full thing.
Right.
With the curved section, 2 of the jaws would be missing.
Okay.
2 of these jaws would be on top of the curve, and the other 2 would just be floating out there.
Okay.
And so these jaws are 2 inches or so. So what I would do is take a Forstner bit that's at least as big as the jaws, so the jaws can fit inside them. And then that would give me a flat area there. You could also, cut it off on a bandsaw or plane it off or split them off with an axe. But basically, I'm going to get some kind of flat that the jaws can rest against.
Thank you.
So.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay. So I'm going to set up. Free here now. Okay, so I'm all set to go. You still hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to turn the speed down. So first what we're going to do is be turning the outside, and I'm going to be turning a tenon to go into the jaws. So this will be the bottom of the bowl. This will be the top. If I forget anything, guys, please chime in. Because the idea is this is supposed to be very basic.
Tom, can you reposition the camera back to initially the way
Yep.
you had it set up?
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would have forgot that.
Excellent. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, no. And also, if anyone wants, there are two other views which we can do. One is that one, and then shot, and then the overhead. So just let me know which one you want to see. And there's also the wide shot too, but I don't think that's as interesting for this. There's that one, but so if you want to see a different view, let me know, because I tend to forget to switch them around. Okay, so I'm gonna turn my speed down. We're gonna start off.
Tailstock distance?
What's that?
You want to talk about the distance from the piece of wood to your tailstock?
Distance from the piece of wood to my tailstock.
No, to the tool rest, sorry.
Oh, tool rest. Well, right now the tool rest, basically, it's about less than a finger's width from this corner. So I'll be moving it closer as we go in there, and start curving this bowl around. But this will get me so I can at least get everything, excuse me, trued up.
Hey, Tom, did you talk about the height
I
of the
did
tool
not.
rest?
So the tool rest, basically I'm gonna be cutting, my cutting edge is gonna be around halfway, maybe a little bit above. So that's where the height of the tool rest is. So I'm gonna turn the speed up a bit. So that's up about 600. Looks like it's in good shape. So we're gonna start nibbling off, and I'm coming from the side in. So I mean, one way you could do it is you could go here and end up thumping things out. That's a little bit harder on the body and the mind. So, but I'm gonna get cut into the side grain here, which is a lot easier. So let's see. Move the torso a little closer. Ah. So you get ready to do a tenon. So poke that so that's a little bit.
For a novice, that would be a rather extended reach for the tool.
That's true. That's very true. Pretend I didn't do that. We'll just continue on the going up on the side here. Well, His Majesty and hit by shavings. See, I'm starting to get my bowl shape there. And as I'm trying to tuck the bow gouge out into my hip and swing around my cutting.
edge are you cutting on your tool?
Cutting on this bottom edge right there. So right down here is where I'm cutting.
Okay, thank you.
Are you okay?
Yeah, I got some dust in my throat.
Okay.
Too much talking before the turning.
Do you have any tips for being able to manipulate your body from right to left while you're following the far edge of your bowl? I constantly look at the actual cutting happening and not what I'm told to do, which is look at the far side of the bowl and follow that.
Yep.
That line.
To tell the truth, I always look at the cut. Well, not always. I find myself looking at the cut a lot more than I should. Which doesn't really hurt. I mean, the idea is you get a better idea of how the bowl is shaped if you're looking at the horizon.
Yeah.
Tom, I might add at this point for the beginners that if you take your tool in hand and go to the position you're going to be at the end of your cut and position your body until it's very comfortable
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the cut, and then reach to the beginning of your cut,
And then just, yeah, don't move your feet, just lean.
and you'll get a nice smooth cut, and you don't have to jiggle yourself into that final piece of that cut.
That
Yep.
makes good sense. Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna try a little rim on the bowl. Now at this point, I'm gonna try to make the tenon area so I can work all that into the shape I'm gonna eventually end up with. Now, this is one of the first templates I ever made. This shows the size of the template the tenon I need to fit in my jaws. So basically, when you have your tenon in there, you want the jaws almost closed, because that's where it forms the perfect circle. So that way you get the most contact around all the jaws. And so that's about the size I want there. So go in, it just happens to be.
Hey, Tom,
Yep,
that pretty dry wood you're cutting?
it's very dry wood.
Okay, so that foot's gonna, or that tenon's gonna stay pretty much the same size. On a piece of green wood, in my limited short experience, be careful because that will shrink on you.
Yep, that's very true. In fact, if it was green wood, you want to make it oversized.
Yeah.
Because even if it's you're gonna do a twice turn bowl.
Yeah.
You know, you're gonna have to go back and it's gonna be out of round, and you're gonna have to put it back into round. So you don't want to make it the minimum size, and then not have enough to turn it. But another trick, if you have one of these Jet Powermatic one-way live centers, you put a pencil right on it like that. That's almost the perfect size for a for 50 millimeter jaws. Guess who I got that tip from? Someone on YouTube. So that's where my tenon's going to be. So I'm going to try to cut that out now, and then I'll know more about where I want my bowl to go up above that. Reposition this a little bit. And just pointing out, the tenon shape depends on the shape of your jaws. So on Nova jaws, on record jaws, for a tenon, this is nearly straight with a little bird's beak on this inside. So you want your tenon wall to be mostly straight, maybe just a little bit undercut with a small dovetail. But the outside, if you're doing a mortise, then that's like a 15-degree dovetail on the outside. So whatever jaws you have, take a look at what the profile of the jaw is before you make your tenon or mortise. So you basically want to match the mortise or the tenon to whatever jaw shape you have at the time. So that was pretty good for the tenon. So we're gonna bring out the skew just to clean that up a little bit. So make sure that is flat there, and that's undercut a little bit. There we go.
Alternatively, you could go in there with your cutoff tool, run that parallel to your live center, and just cut your tenon that way.
Yeah, I always use my skew just like a scraper.
Right.
And that's I don't know why I started doing it that way. So I'll go back to shaping the outside a little bit. Okay, so I think pretty much that's going to be my profile. So I'm sort of close to a third for the base and on sides, and maybe a little bit more than a third. But this is a bowl I want to use, so it's a little more than a third. That's just a little more stable. I have a decent finish on the surface. So a little bit of tool marks there. Maybe I'll take another quick cut right on that little detail I have there. It's looking good. Now, one thing which I'll show, I don't need it on this part of the bowl, but if you want to do a shear scrape with your bowl gouge, the way you do that is I'm going to drop the handle of the bowl gouge way down here. Let me check the, see if I can get a better view. No, not that one. But I'm going to put the handle of the bowl gouge way down. So I'm coming up. So this is almost perpendicular I'm sorry, parallel to the side here. And I'm going to come through and just touch it, the very bottom edge of the bowl gouge here. And just try to scrape this a little bit to clean it up. Just getting really wispy little shavings off. But that extreme angle gets you a nice slicing cut on there. There we go. I'm now ready to do a little bit of sanding. I'm not going to do too much, but I'll just give you an idea of what I use for bowl sanding. I have a couple different things which I use. First is just, regular sheets of Abernet or sandpaper, and slow it down a little bit. And I'll just take it and so that's one way. And that can take a while if you have significant tool marks to tear out. So the next thing you can try is this is a inertia sander. Basically, the way this works is you put the sandpaper on, and you let the actual spinning of the lathe power the sandpaper, so you get more of a radial circular sanding on it instead of just straight line sanding. So that takes care of they can help get some of the lines out that are on there. And just what you just contacted it. You just run the corners either 10 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock, or 8 o'clock. And those give you the little spinning going across grain. So you can do it if you do it at like 3 o'clock, it'll go really fast, but it's not doing much because you're not going across at all. So you want to go just a little bit below the horizontal and vertical lines. And whichever edge you contact will determine whether you're going clockwise or counterclockwise. I did the other edge, I spin the other direction. Then if you really want to get moving, it's my favorite Harbor Freight drill for like $35, I think it was. So that. So that I have a quick change sanding disc system for that. Power sand. So, but whichever way I do it, I'll go, I usually take up to about 400 on the outside. So I have a little bit more work there. So. One thing I found, you want to do your trouble spots. You want to focus on them a little bit because if you just try to sand everything down, you can end up with taking more of the side grain off than you want, because the end grain won't sand away as fast. So, see if I just have a little bit here to clean up. And I'm not going to make you watch me sand a whole bowl, but that's what I'll go through, and so we'll go up to, we'll go at least up to 180. Okay, so we'll pretend that's all done up to 400 grit. This will be a workshop bowl. So now I'm all ready to switch it around and put it in the other end and start to haul it out. Any questions about doing the outside or that nature, doing the sanding? So,
Would you put your finish on normally now?
I will probably, if I was doing just a wax finish or an oil finish, I might put it on now. Only because that way the outside is sort of done. So if I have to do any gluing or anything, it won't get into this wood. So if I know that this is where I want it, and it's not gonna, I'm not gonna need to glue anything or change anything, then yes, I'll put a quick finish on this.
Thank you.
So now one other thing that's really important here is I use the tailstock, so I got it automatically, but I have a mark here where center is, which really comes in handy later on when you're, because after I haul it out, I'm gonna have to bring this back this direction, take the tenon off. So if I'm gonna be using a jam chuck, that'll help me center it. If I'm gonna be using my vacuum chuck or even cold jaws, that'll help me center the piece so that I'll have a lot less movement later on. So here what I'll do is just twist it right off that screw. Are there any questions about sanding? Because I'm sort of blowing past that real quick. I'm assuming people don't want to watch me sand, but if you have any questions, let me know.
Tom, do you use a friction polish at all on your bowls?
Not usually, no. To me, friction polish, the benefits are it's really fast, but it doesn't wear well. Let me switch the camera around a little bit here. It's not a real hard finish. So I definitely don't want to use it on a bowl that's going to be in use and getting washed or anything. So for bowls, I'll either typically use walnut oil on them, or I'll use beeswax mineral oil mix on them. To me, the benefit of those are I'm making things that I'm assuming people want to use. If I do it that way, then I can give them a little tin of wax and oil, and that bowl's going to look as good as it did the day I handed it to them if they keep up with it. If I put a film finish on it, water's going to get underneath that. It's going to start to peel and pucker and discolor, and it's a pain to finish that off because it has to basically come back. You have to sand the finish off and put a new finish on it. So if it's meant to be used, I'll stick with wax and oil type finishes.
How much oil will you put on it, and how long will you let it soak in?
I'll put oil on it till it stops sucking it in.
To what?
This is an old dry piece of wood. This is going to take a lot of oil, probably 2 or 3 coats before it's saturated.
So I find I have a difficult time getting any type of shine out of oil.
You won't get any shine from oil. Yeah. If you want shine, put some carnauba wax on it. over the oil.
Okay. Yeah, just buff it.
But yeah, oil will not give you a shine. Oil is satin. Like a soft wax, like a beeswax, will not give you a big shine. If you want the highest shine you can get with a wax finish, you'll have to use something like Carnauba, nice hard wax. Now, if it's going to be sitting on a shelf somewhere, you spray lacquer, put a nice shiny finish on it. Paint it blue, whatever you want to do. If it's on a shelf, then you can do whatever you want to make it as shiny or as special as you want.
Right. All right,
If you
thanks.
stand to 600, 800 and higher, you can get a good sheen.
Until it gets wet.
Okay?
Until it gets wet, then you'll raise the grain again. It'll be back where you were.
Okay, wow.
Yeah. And that's the thing. You can do things like that, but they're not going to last. The only shiny finishes that last are going to be like a spray lacquer or something like that. But I don't want to use that personally, I don't want to use that for a bowl that's going to be used. That's my take on it. Your mileage may vary.
Thanks, Tom.
Sure. Make sure everything's seated real well. Now, the important thing on the tenon, switch back to overhead. Let's down here a little bit. You'll notice my tenon's only coming down like halfway in the jaws. I'm not contacting the bottom of the jaws at all. My jaws are pretty close to where they're a circle. This is probably a little bit bigger than it should be, but not too much. I'm tight against the bottom of the bowl. It's tight against the front of the jaws. I'm not bottomed out. Those are the two main ideas. So I have good contact all along the inside of the jaw and on the face of the jaw. That's going to give me my strongest hold. Because it's not me tightening this thing super tight that's going to hold the ball in. It's going to be all the contact here, which is going to hold everything in. So you don't want to, if I keep cranking down on this as hard as I possibly can, I'm going to snap that tenon off most likely. That's when people say that the tenons always break on them, I think that's probably the biggest problem. They're not depending on the shape of the jaws and the surface contact to be the strength. They're trying to get it brute force. And that's not the way to do it. Okay, so let me reconfigure here a little bit. Sorry, just got a text message from somebody. Okay. That out. Take out the elbow pricker. Okay. Giddy. That help? There we go. So again, I'm going to position the tool rest so when I'm cutting, I want to be at around midline on the bowl. So a little bit low yet. And that takes into account that I'm going to be holding my handle down a little bit. So that should work good. Okay, so I'm going to be cutting now, and all my cuts are going to be starting on the outside, going towards the center. And the idea is that if you notice on the outside of the bowl, I went from the bottom to the rim. The reason you do that is because if you think about how the grain is running, Um, the grain is running this way. So if you look at this curve, by going bottom to the top, I'm basically pushing this piece of grain into this piece of grain, which is sticking out a little bit. So I'm supporting that grain. If I was going in the other direction, I would catch this, I would catch that one, and I would be tearing the grain. But this way I'm supporting each piece of grain against the next. So that gives me my best surface here. On the inside of the bowl, it's just the opposite. So I'm since the grain's running more like, my hairs don't bend that way. Like this, I'm going down and I'm pushing again against one piece of grain into the next. So that's the supporting way, and I'll give you the best cut going into the bowl. If you're doing an end grain bowl where the grain's coming out this way, it's all reverse. You basically go from the center out when you do an end grain bowl. But this is a side grain bowl. So won't worry too much about that. But always think about which way your grain is going. On spindle turning, you always want to turn downhill from the lowest point in down to the lowest point. Cross grain is a little bit different. You have to think about it a little bit more. So, first, we'll take a nice cut around across the top of this. Another thing to think about is your left hand is basically just ballast. It's holding the tool down into the tool rest to keep you from bouncing around. You don't need a lot of force on it. And my right hand is actually driving the tool. So I'm not pushing with this hand at all. You want to take a nice light cut. Let the tool move. Don't force the tool through the wood. Let the tool cut its way through. And as I get towards the center, I'm going to be closing my edge up a little bit because it's turning a lot slower here. So you need to close the edge up a little bit and then take that out. So you're not picking up, not tearing that out. So.
Switch to the tailstock camera.
I got a little bit too big of a bite there, so I'm gonna back off a little bit.
Hey, Tom,
Yep.
can you switch to the other camera? Tailstock camera, maybe?
Yep. Come on, get my mouth out of the dust. So I found my mouse. There we go. That better?
Thanks.
Okay, I'm trying to hang it a little bit too far over the rest now. So, position things. Anybody have any other questions or hints they want to give? Oh, the one thing that you probably want to think about, you can make bowls, you can also make funnels. So you want to keep track of where you are, how deep you are in the bowl. That's why I made this little thing. It's just a dowel with a piece of wood and rubber band I use for the to hold everything together. This I'm about that far, so I'm only going to want to go about another 1/4 inch or so, 3/8 deeper. So, but I'm going to have to go more, take more off the edges and a little bit less off the bottom as I go. So I'm going to just try to keep that in mind as I keep moving down there. The thing you want to do is see where your walls are. If you have a nice consistent thickness, or whether you're thicker somewhere than others, to get some idea where you need to cut more off, where you're good. Until you're getting down there when it starts singing at you. Okay, so I want to do a little bit more work up here on the rim. I think I'm getting pretty close where I want to be on the other walls. I'm going to cheat a little bit here now. And then I'm going to pull out another 1/2-inch gouge. Just pretend I sharpened the one I was using. Okay. Do a quick assessment where we are. My bottom here is still a little thick through here. I could still take a little bit off the depth. So what I might do now is switch over to my scraper. So this one is a negative rake I made up, but you could still do this with a regular scraper. Like negative rake because it's more forgiving. I'll just put it right on center, and I can just take this down where I want it. So.
Tom, can I throw out a suggestion for the group?
You definitely can.
I noticed a slight vibration, and a difference in noise as you're coming out to the edge of the bowl.
Yep.
Very common, typical, and it's even worse as the thinner you get. When that happens to me, I frequently will wrap the exterior of the bowl with poly, the poly wrap that's used in packing, and it just put a tight wrap of poly, and it gives it enough support to keep that vibration down.
Well, let's demonstrate.
There you go. Just pull the tool rest out of your way.
Doesn't matter which way you do it.
Yes, it does. You want to go in the direction that you're turning.
Because it's turning this way, so I want to wrap that way also.
Yep. Don't worry about the overhang. You'll cut right through it.
That's true. Oop. It's not holding.
Yeah. I go in the other direction.
This direction?
Yeah, yeah. It's easier if you lock the spindle.
Yeah, unfortunately mine doesn't have a good lock.
Yeah.
That's the trouble with these jets and the Powermatics. Yeah, that stupid push button which doesn't actually lock. You have to hold it in.
And then I secure that with a little piece of masking tape.
Let's see, that's over this side. Okay, see what that does.
When you get that harmonic vibration in that, particularly when you're scraping it, it'll leave a ripple that you'll never be able to sand out.
A bit quieter. Okay, so I can just work on this interface there a little bit. Okay. Just a little bit more there. Okay.
With
Yeah, I'm
dry
happy with that.
mahogany, it doesn't make much difference, Tom, but if you are working with wet wood, particularly something like apple, as people are turning apple these days, you'd find that that poly wrap will keep it from drying out too fast on the on one side and going out around as you're turning it.
Yep, I've definitely used it a lot for that. When I have to go in for lunch or something on the lathe, I just wrap it up real quick. And my bottom's still a little bit bumpy. Still a little bumpy in there. Okay, I'm gonna call that good. Okay, there we go. That's the inside and the outside. So now what I do is I'll sand the inside just like I did for the outside. Yeah, I don't know if people want to see me sand. I don't, probably not. I'd start a little bit rough. Well, not too bad. Actually, it's one patch right here is a little bit soft. So I'd probably hit that with 120 maybe until that's nice and soft, smooth. Then go up to 400 and basically just dump oil in it and dump oil, wipe it until it doesn't suck up any more oil. So then when this is all done, next step would be to turn around, take the tenon off. So now there's a couple different ways, a few different ways to do that. And I'll let you guys pick which way you want. I can use a jam chuck. Just hold it up there and take the tenon down. I can use a vacuum chuck to do that. Or I could, well, I could use my cold jaws, but they're taken apart right now and I don't feel like putting them on. So you want to see a jam chuck or a vacuum chuck?
Vacuum chuck.
Vacuum chuck. Okay. Just give me a minute. I'll get turn my compressor on.
Tom, is that a straight vacuum or a Venturi vacuum?
It's a Venturi. So this is actually that's the vacuum generator. It's the hold fast one. I keep on saying I'm going to buy a pump, but to be fair, this is doing the job, so it hasn't been a real big priority. I was getting confused. I'm looking for a pump. What I'm looking for. Any suggestions for you guys who have good vacuum pumps?
Oilless.
That's what I've heard.
If you go with like a one from Harbor Freight,
Terrible.
I started off with that. I have one that I leave outside.
I started with a Harbor Freight one, and I ended up in a room full of fine fog.
Oh yeah.
Yep,
Yeah.
that's what I've
why
heard.
I have it
Terrible.
outside.
I used it for about a month, and then I took it to the auction, I think, one year, and let some other suckers deal with it. Oh, I'm not kind. I know I'm not good, Marcel. I'm bad. But I went to Peter James, and he sent me an email of the website to buy a reconditioned medical pump.
Oh, the Frugal Vacuum Pump.
What is it?
Frugalvacuumpump.com.
I don't remember what it is, but I bought it. I put it to install the system, and I just love it. I use it all the time. It's the same system. I put an accumulator in it. I put filters and all kinds of stuff on it, and it works great. I never had a problem. I can let it run almost all day, and it doesn't seem to overheat. It holds up to 72 inches of mercury, or 72 psi, whatever it is. Yeah, I think it's 72 psi. It holds pretty damn strong. I have had some bowls that have significant leaks in them, burls and things, and
Yep, I found those.
and for those, you absolutely do need to keep your tailstock in place.
That's why I usually break out my old cold jaws. Okay, so we'll go back to the.
I agree with Ron. If you're going to get a vacuum pump, avoid the oil ones. Go oilless.
Yep.
Well, if you get an oil one, just set it outside. I still have my oil one, so.
Away from everything, including the side of the house.
I actually tried putting a car oil filter on it to try to filter out the smoke. It doesn't work.
I know. I did the same thing, and it doesn't work.
Okay. Now, if you remember, I made that. I told you make sure you make the mark with your tailstock in there. That's what I'm going to use now. I'm going to put that right on my tailstock point, and that's going to center up everything.
Hey, if anybody decides to go with vacuum chucking with a pump, if they contact me, I have a link to a rotary union for inexpensive money that works well. Jim can attest to it.
I bought a couple of those that you sent me the link to, and they are well worth the money.
Yeah, for $80 versus 300.
Yeah.
Because you're not turning at 3,000 RPM, or
no, but they're
I'm not yet.
Yeah. Those are good. I bought 2 of them, and they work just great.
Okay, so let's pressure build a little bit more. as my compressor charges, I get more pressure on the vacuum also.
While you're waiting for the pressure to come up, Tom, there is an alternative to the center point that you have. And that is to leave it in the chuck,
Yep.
take it bowl and chuck together off of the lathe. And
that's this little thing.
That's right. Put that on your.
So this fits into your tailstock.
Right.
I can go to the top camera here.
God, now I'm gonna have to make one of those.
That's
You're
right.
gonna have to. These are the best things.
What's that called?
I have no idea what it's really called, but
One way calls it a
tail.
One way calls it a tailstock adapter for the 33 millimeter chuck.
Is that a number 2 Morse taper?
Yep. Yeah, so this is number 2.
Or it's
Basically,
not
it goes
like
in there
it's
and you screw your chuck right on there. So you never take the bowl out of the chuck. You just take whatever chuck you're using, spin it off the lathe, spin it onto this, and put this right into the tail center. And that's
the one that one way makes threads right onto the thread at the end of your live center.
Oh, really?
And so it spins free and spins free with your as you're bringing the bowl up to the vacuum pad. It spins together, so you get a proper centering.
Oh, nice. Yeah, this one doesn't spin. So.
It's, I think, a 3/4 inch thread.
Yeah.
One way has
3/4 10, I think.
I think so. Yeah, one way has that for small money for whatever size chuck you want.
I know I have a tap to fit that one.
There you go. You can make it out of wood.
That's true. But that's really nice. I like using that, especially when I forget to put that little hole in there.
Right.
Okay, so I gotta turn my speed down again to start. Definitely have a face shield on for this. I've lost more bowls taking the tenon off than I care to count.
Did you leave the tailstock in place until the end?
On some of them, yes.
Yeah.
It's always when I take the tailstock away.
The good ones you did, the bad ones you didn't, right?
So that's basically it, yeah.
Been there, done that. So hasn't Marcel, I can tell.
Okay, so basically I'm just gonna nibble on my tenon a little bit. Nice easy cuts.
Tell you, I don't mess with vacuum unless I can't use my jumbo or cold jaws. Just because.
You're throwing oil over your house, so.
Pardon?
You're throwing oil all over your house.
Well, no, I've got 2 pumps, but.
Tom, I like the way you're making that initial cut. You're starting with small diameter and going out. If you were to cut in on your larger shoulder there, it's amazing how much extra added force you'd be putting on that vacuum chuck.
Yep, that's what I found. Either I do that, just nibble it out this way, or I'll come out here on the old one, just go down.
Oh, that's my mistake.
That way
if you were to go in, it puts a lot of force on that vacuum chuck.
Yeah, but if you're doing this, that's the definitely wrong way to do it.
Right.
So until you get very close to the end. Now, what you'll point out is I've seen a couple turners, they'll use a nice big, like 4-inch tenon, even on a bowl like this. And well, the bigger tenons are definitely stronger, but also then they use that tenon as part of their foot.
Mm-hmm.
So you make that more of a design so you're not throwing away so much wood. You know, if this was something besides, 5-year-old mahogany dust, that might be a good way to go. If it was a apple burl or cherry or something.
Mhm.
And one other thing I want to point out is, you can see I'm making that undercut, so that way the bowl's not going to rock.
Mhm.
The bowl is on the outer ring. You don't want to make it flat because it won't stay flat. Wood moves. So by undercutting it, you always know that the bowl will be resting out here. You won't get a rocky bowl. Okay. So. Go this way, the parting tool a little bit.
Spindle gouge is good for this operation too.
Yep.
You know, a 60-degree point on your live center wouldn't hurt either.
You might want to talk about the problems of breaking that tip off.
True. If you end up breaking it off, you can tear the fibers with it. So you definitely want to cut it.
And it goes below the surface, so that you'll never get it sanded out.
Right.
Without going through the bottom.
Yep. So now I'm all set. I can do a little bit more cleanup there. So I'll probably do a little bit of that with my spindle gouge. This is where you want to be really, really careful. It's not unsupported. And that's it. Basically, I'll sand that up now. Finish the whole thing, and that would be it. So there it is.
And it's not a funnel.
It's not a funnel.
Very good.
Yeah, in fact, it's maybe a little heavy on the bottom. Not too bad though. So,
Very nice.
but that's all your basic bowl.
Very
Come on, we
nice
got a
job.
minute for a show and tell.
Sure.
I don't know how many of you folks watch this Record Power. They have these live videos on.
Let me
but
find you
anyway.
first. I gotta figure out how to get me off of
Are you there?
In a minute, I got to get myself off of Spotlight and put you on.
Ah,
Huh.